Hello, everyone. This is John Jenkins once again, and I just wanted to come and talk to you guys. I've been watching a lot of the Amazing Atheists lately. T.J. Kirk. Many of you know who he is. I'm a big fan of the Amazing Atheist. In fact, he was one of the individuals who inspired me to become an atheist myself. And I was watching this video he did. It was called Free Market Capitalism Fails. And he said some things in the video that were very interesting, but there were some points that he was a little bit wrong about, and I thought that I'd come to you and discuss those things today. Now, first of all, during the video, he makes a claim that in free market capitalism, true free market capitalism, it is impossible. It is impossible for either party to leave a transaction with more wealth. Basically, the the people who support free market capitalism say that uh, in every transaction, both participants, the seller and the buyer, leave the transaction wealthier than they were before the transaction. And basically, what he said was, it's physically impossible for either participant in a free market capitalist transaction to become wealthier because the buyer is selling something that is worth just as much as the money that I'm sorry, the buyer is purchasing something with an amount of money that is equal in worth to what the seller is selling. Basically, what the buyer and the seller are exchanging are equal in value. Therefore, exchanging equal for equal, neither one is going to increase in wealth. This was his argument, and I disagree with that argument. And here's why. It comes down to the notion of, in economics, they call it opportunity cost. Basically, opportunity cost is the difference between purchasing an item and the next best alternative. Let me give you an example. If someone comes up to me and sells me an iPhone for $300 or $500, I have two main choices as far as getting an iPhone. If you know, excluding the option to avoid the iPhone altogether, not being able to say no. Basically, I have to get an iPhone one way or the other. So there's two main options. Either I can purchase an iPhone for $500, and it comes with everything in it in the box. All I have to do is call up and set up my data plan, my phone line, basically. I can do that, or I can produce my own iPhone and give it to myself for free. Here's the issue. If I were to produce my own iPhone, it would cost me about $3 billion a year. Now, the way I calculated that is that I'm paying 10,000 people $100,000 a year on average to work for me and support my iPhone So that's $1 billion. Then I added $2 billion more dollars for materials, supplies, renting airspace and bandwidth, and the phone towers that I'm gonna maintain and build. So the number I came up with was about $3 billion. Now, $500 one time, or until the next version of the iPhone, like the iPhone 5 or whatever, then until the next version iPhone that I have to upgrade for. Until then, I'm paying $500 as opposed to $3 billion a year. Now, on the opposing side, on the side of the seller, um, the seller has an option. He can sell me the item. He can produce an item and put it up for sale, or he can choose an alternative. He can choose not to produce the item. Now, if he with today's modern mass production and factories and technology and blueprints and digital design, things of that nature, computer simulations, he can choose not to sell this item, this iPhone. He can choose to produce one example for himself, just a smartphone, no internet connection, no phone line. He can choose to produce just an example for himself, or he can choose to sell his item, mass produce it, and sell it to, let's say, 20 million people. I'll reduce that. I'll say 10 million people. So 10 million people at $500, $500 a piece. That's about, let's see, 1 billion. That's about $10 billion. So the iPhone would cost about 1 billion, 3 billion a year, $3 billion a year to produce and maintain, and it would cost about it would bring in about $10 billion in revenue. The revenue is probably much higher than that. It's probably closer to 200 billion. Um, because of all the apps and the updates and the features and things of that nature, and the advertising revenue, things of that nature, they're probably bringing in about $200 billion a year on the iPhone. So here's a dichotomy. I can choose to purchase something or produce it myself, you know, or I get me and 20 million of my friends together, and we purchase it together, and so we get something that on its own would cost us way more than we could afford, but we get something at an affordable price, um, and full of features and connections to the world. And on the other hand, I can choose not to sell to anyone. I can choose to keep the example for myself, but I'm letting go of $200 billion in revenue. So the second part that I disagree with in his video, and basically what he said was that what he said was that and this is actually a continuance of what he said before. He said that in a true free market capitalist system, the buyer and the seller are selling something that is equal in value, and therefore there's no way for either side to make a profit or to increase in wealth. And basically, the second principle of economics that I want to discuss is equilibrium, the concept of equilibrium. In economics, equilibrium is the one price that every good or service can achieve, which will bring the maximum amount of sales. People will not pay more or less than the equilibrium price. For the maximum amount of sales, you need to be at the equilibrium price. Now, naturally, I don't believe that most products ever even make it to the equilibrium price because our markets are limited, our resources are limited. We can't just sell an item, a bag of chips. Basically, we can't sell a bag of chips at every price point from 1 to a sextillion. We can't we can't we can't we can't try it at every price point imaginable. We can only go on, okay, what did a bag of chips cost 50 years ago, and what are the enhancements of this new bag of chips? What's the rarity of this bag of chips? Things of this nature, we factor those in, and then we come up with a price. But the point is that the price of a product can only be determined based on what people have spent on similar products in history. There is, and coming from a purely economic standpoint, a purely capitalist standpoint, there is no intrinsic value in anything. All value is subjective. What I mean, think about gold. Gold is considered worldwide to be very valuable. But that value is based on the perception that it is rare. That value is based on the perception that it is synonymous with royalty. But there could be someone in this world, and there are probably many, many people in this world who have no value for gold. And for them, gold is worthless. There are many people who don't want diamond rings, don't want golden necklaces. For them, the value of gold and diamonds are zero. And it's the same with everything else. There was no way to determine which two things are equal in value because everything is on a sliding scale. Everything is on a sliding scale. Basically, if I have a whole bunch of water and you have a whole bunch of cars, well, a bunch of water, gaining more water, let's say I have more water than I could ever drink or use in my lifetime. Gaining more water wouldn't be worth anything to me because I have more water than I could use in a lifetime. And let's say you have more cars than you could ever drive or even sit behind the wheel of in your entire lifetime. And you have at least one example from every car brand and make and model ever made. Producing, me giving you another car, that's not going to be worth anything to you because you already have one example of every car ever made. And because, but for the person who has a whole bunch of cars and no water, water's going to be worth everything to them. For the person who has a whole bunch of water and no cars, cars are going to be worth a whole lot to them. And that disparity between the haves and the have-nots is what creates the value based on how much does it mean to me? How much am I willing to trade? So these were just two issues that I had with his video on free market capitalism, and let me know if you disagree or agree with what he said, and have a nice day.